For this list, we're taking a look back at some of the best enemies ever to come out of the MCU, based on how memorable their performance was, how relatable they are, and how well their schemes played out. We'll only be covering the movie villains, so television and Netflix baddies, like Kingpin and Kilgrave, are not eligible, no matter how memorable they may have been. Also, if you aren't caught up, there will be spoilers.
Let's do this again sometime.
Number 10, Obadiah Stane / Ironmonger, Iron Man.
What are we gonna do about this?
Obadiah Stane was the second in command at Stark Industries, and a good friend to both Howard and Tony Stark. Desperate to wrestle control of the company for himself, Stane tried everything he could think of to get rid of Tony. But that only amplified Tony's plans to have Stark Industries stop producing weapons.
Where do you think you're going?
In a desperate move, he finally builds and dons the Ironmonger armor for one last brawl with Iron Man, and loses. While the motivations of the MCU's first villain aren't exactly inspired, we have to give it up to the megalomaniac that inadvertently started this whole franchise. Plus, you can always count on Jeff Bridges to give a memorable performance.
I never had a taste for this sort of thing, but I must admit, I'm deeply enjoying the suit.
Number 9, Johann Schmidt / Red Skull, Captain America: The First Avenger.
You don't have one of those, do you?
Johann Schmidt was a valuable asset to the Nazi Party. However, his lust for power prompted him to test a tainted super soldier serum on himself, which completely disfigured his head, earning him the unfortunate name Red Skull. Eventually, Schmidt found the legendary Tesseract, harnessed its power to create unstoppable tools to conquer the world, and broke away from the Nazis to lead the modern incarnation of Hydra. Red Skull might be lacking in the complexity department, but Hugo Weaving's scenery-chewing performance and his pulp-inspired look help make him stand out. You can't get much more evil than a literal super Nazi. Number 8, Ultron, Avengers: Age of Ultron.
I only deal with the man in charge.
There is no man in charge.
Using Loki's scepter, Tony Stark tried to create an artificial intelligence that could help maintain peace across the Earth, but what he ended up making was a genocidal mess. As quickly as he was born, Ultron gained sentience and the ability to evolve, build, and destroy. Unlike his comic counterpart, this Ultron isn't driven purely on twisted logic, but rather egomaniacal beliefs. While the Avengers were able to stop him, the casualties and destruction from his rampage would haunt our heroes for another year, and practically tear them apart, so his legacy lives on. That, coupled with the fact that he gets plenty of great lines, makes him one effective villain.
I was meant to be beautiful. The world would have looked to the sky and seen hope, seen mercy. Instead, they'll look up in horror because of you.
Number 7, Colonel Helmut Zemo, Captain America: Civil War.
Now that you're standing here, I just realized there's a bit of green in the blue of your eyes.
In the comics, Helmut was a purple mask-wielding German who followed in his father's footsteps as the Baron Zemo. In Civil War, he's a Slovakian colonel who lost everything during the Ultron attacks, and developed a bitter hatred towards the Avengers. Driven by revenge, Zemo worked from the shadows to frame Bucky, and dig up information from the past to achieve his ultimate goal, breaking the hero team apart from the inside.
That's dead. Forever.
While drastically different than his original counterpart, Zemo still maintains the Baron's scheming intellect, successfully orchestrating the final brawl between Cap and Iron Man. While he was eventually arrested, his devilish plot and understandable motivations make him a standout.
So how does it feel? Spend all that time, all that effort, and to see it fail so spectacularly.
Number 6, Adrian Toomes / Vulture, Spider-Man: Homecoming.
The world's changing. It's time we change too.
Toomes was the owner of a salvage company that picked up after the Avengers' messes, until it was replaced by Tony Stark's own damage control organization. Unemployed and desperate, he and his crew salvaged alien tech to sell as weapons on the black market, putting him on the super criminal path. Vulture is one of the more relatable villains because he's not some power-mad supervillain, but rather a businessman trying to support his family in a world that's evolving too fast.
I'll kill you dead. That's what I'll do to protect my family, Pete. You understand?
During their final struggle, Spidey saves his life, so Vulture repays him by keeping his identity a secret from those who could benefit from it. You've got to appreciate a villain with a code.
If I knew who he was, he'd already be dead.
Number 5, Hela Odin's daughter, Thor Ragnarok.
So he's gone.
In addition to being the goddess of death and Odin's eldest daughter, Hela is a first major female MCU villain. She served her father's side as Asgard's executioner, but was banished due to her enthusiastic bloodlust. Odin wanted to keep Hela a secret, but she returned upon his death and wasted no time taking over. She obliterated Thor's hammer, declared herself Queen of Asgard, and prepared for global conquest, enslaving or slaughtering anyone who got in her way.
I thought you'd be happy to see me.
The only way to end her unstoppable tyranny was by making the ultimate sacrifice, Asgard itself. Played excellently by Cate Blanchett, Hela is a villain who commands the screen with her presence.
I'm the goddess of death. What were you the god of again?
Number 4. Sergeant James Buchanan Bucky Barnes / Winter Soldier. Captain America the Winter Soldier.
Bucky? Who the hell is Bucky?
Bucky was Captain America's loyal friend since childhood. On one fateful World War II mission, however, he plummeted from a train to his apparent death. Turns out he survived, only to be brainwashed and made into one of Hydra's deadliest agents, the Winter Soldier. When he's brought out of stasis to assassinate Nick Fury, we eventually learn that he's been used as a covert hitman for decades. Thankfully, Cap eventually helps Bucky remember his old life, prompting him to leave and try to regain even more of his memories. A complex figure who blurs the lines between good and evil and forces a wedge between heroes, Winter Soldier added a whole new dynamic to the MCU.
People are gonna die, Buck. I can't let that happen.
Number 3. Eric Stevens Njidaka / Killmonger, Black Panther.
The world's gonna start over. I'ma burn it all.
Killmonger was the son of a traitorous Wakandan prince who was killed by the previous Black Panther, T'Chaka. Since that day, Killmonger has been driven by one goal, seizing the Wakandan throne as the new Black Panther and completing his father's dream of arming their oppressed brothers with Wakandan weaponry. Though his approach is extreme, consider his position. He lost his father at a young age and was left behind, hurt and alone. That stings worse than any of his self-inflicted scars. In the end, Killmonger dies peacefully, and his story inspires the Wakandans to connect with the outside world. Evil acts aside, he's the sort of villain whose perspective you can understand.
What happens now determines what happens to the rest of the world.
Number 2. Thanos, Avengers Infinity War.
To challenge them is to court death.
Beware the Mad Titan. Across his various limited appearances, Thanos has made his ultimate goal clear. Find all 6 Infinity Stones, harness their power, and ultimately court death herself. At first, he tries to rely on help from partners like Loki and Ronan in retrieving the stones, but when they ultimately fail, Thanos accepts that if you want something done right, you do it yourself.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
While the Warlord's role was limited before Infinity War, his slow-building story arc has already made him iconic within the franchise. Plus, he gets bonus points for inadvertently helping to create 2 of the franchise's greatest superhero teams.
When I'm done, half of humanity will still exist.
Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are a few marvelous honorable mentions.
You will never rule Xandar.
No. I will cure it!
Grow and spread, covering all that exists until everything is me.
Number 1. Loki Lofason, Marvel Cinematic Universe.
You can't kill an entire race.
Why not?
Taking the number 1 spot is unarguably the most developed villain in the MCU. Loki is Thor's adopted brother and the god of mischief, an appropriate title since he's a master manipulator. He could fool almost anyone, either with his charming personality and wordplay, or with a little magical assistance, and he'll even use any of these abilities to seize the throne, launch a full-scale invasion, and even cheat death. Despite all that, Loki's motives aren't pure evil. What he really wants is to prove his worth, and escape his adoptive brother's shadow. Who knows, with time, he could make for an even better anti-hero.
Bold move, brother.